Thursday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good afternoon. The Browns wrapped up mandatory minicamp out in Berea today. Up next, training camp. Here are some of the things that went on today. Joe Flacco did take first-team reps. Good sign as well. Cedric Tillman on the field with the activities, although just in shorts again. Kenny Pickett, pretty good pass here to tight end Trey McKitty. McKitty has played really well in the off-season programs. This time it's Shedeur Sanders as the quarterback. And on the receiving end, how about Trey McKitty again? Little drag across the sideline there. Pretty good camp, although they're not in pads. So Quincy Junkins in team drills gets the handoff from Joe Flacco, and a nice little hole there, bursts through it. Another one of the rookies, that's Harold Fannin Jr. working on his blocking, all good stuff. But again, now it's 5.5 weeks of off season, and then they will come back and they will put on the pads for training camp, which will start at the end of July. So about a month, 5-6 weeks, and they'll be going with things that really matter. Hall of Fame offensive lineman Joe Thomas was asked what advice he would give Browns rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders.
The best advice that I got as a rookie, and I think the best advice that still holds true, especially for a guy like Shedeur, is keep your mouth closed and your eyes and ears open. Be humble, always diffuse praise, and always assume any criticism and accept it. Because the best thing he can do is just go to work every single day, get a little bit better, get better at one thing right at the top of your notebook every day. Hey, this is my goal for the day. This is what I want to get better at. This is how I'm going to get better at. And then at the end of the day, go back and be very critical. The mirror test. Look yourself in the mirror and be the most harsh critic of yourself and your game and say, hey, did I accomplish what I set out to do at this practice? And if you're able to do that, you're going to get a little bit better every day. And he's got all the talent in the world to be a great quarterback in the league. But you don't want to get caught up in any of the quarterback competition or any of the noise coming from the outside about how you're doing or how you're playing or getting too high or too low, right? Training camp's all about just putting the work in, learning your craft, polishing that craft. And so far the returns have been great. And I think just following along and talking to people like Zagura that have been there, it sounds like he is doing a great job, and he just needs to stay right on track.
Yeah.
Again, Shedeur Sanders, the rest of the Browns quarterbacks, about 6 weeks, and then they come back and they'll do it in pads. Kenny Pickett, one of those quarterbacks, has started 25 games in the NFL. He's won 15 of them. Of those 15, he has 6 fourth quarter come from behind wins during his short NFL career as a starter. He was asked about that.
Preparation, and it's the ultimate team game. So you need all other 10 guys on the field to do their job as well. So I've been a part of great teams. I've had great teammates that when it comes down to it, the work that we put in, I trust that they're going to be where I need them to be. They know that I'm prepared and I'm going to get the ball where it needs to be. So it's a complete team game, and that's we started the 2-minute stuff today, and I thought it went really well. So it was a good start for that.
All right, Kenny Pickett's certainly in the mix, along with Joe Flacco, Shedeur Sanders, and Dylan Gabriel. There will be plenty of that coming up in about 6 weeks or so. Offensive line coach Mike Bloomgren asked about the challenges of being a new offensive line coach with such a veteran group as he inherits with the Browns.
I don't know that there's a challenge in that. I think it's quite an advantage, especially because there's so many things in my background with Bill Callahan that is called the same and still done the same, but there's also things that aren't. And so I think having those vets, when you talk about Joel and Poe and Wyatt and Jack, those guys are such a good window into the past, the recent past. And so I can see how Bill evolved, because Bill always evolves. He's a master coach, and so it's a good thing for us to be able to say, okay, we're going to do this like this or exactly like that, and just for a start of reference in the conversation.
So Bloomgren, the new offensive line coach, had the Bill Callahan stamp of approval. That's why he is with the Browns. Defensive line coach Jacques Cesaire, his early impressions of first-round pick Mason Graham.
I love Mason. The thing I love about Mason, right? I think everybody, heard, he ate a little bit too much and he threw up that first day. But what a lot of people are not talking about is that the kid finished. Okay, he went back out there, puke and all, and finished the rep, But here's a kid that every day he got better. Every day he came out here, he's running to the ball as fast as he could. You see his rush game developing. You see him launching with hands. It's going to be hard, obviously coming from a read scheme, going to an attack scheme. But he's done a really good job, and he's great in the room. Extremely smart individual, hardworking. So I can't wait to see him go on to play.
Plenty of Browns talk ahead with Quincy Carrier in just a few minutes. So let's turn our attention to the Guardians. Has not been a great stretch of baseball for the Guardians. Currently in third in the AL Central. One thing, the last 5 weeks or so that's been really good has been the starting pitching rotation. Carl Willis talked about the starters and what they're doing well.
They are young. Sometimes we tend to forget that. And, I think they're learning about themselves, learning about what the best version of themselves looks like at the major league level. Certainly there have been adjustments that they've done a great job in working on and making, whether it be pitch types, pitch usages, sequencing, just confidence in attacking the zone. There's still a ways to go. We got to cut down on the walks. There's always room to get better, particularly in two-strike counts. Putting guys away. We're great at getting into those two-strike counts. We got to be better at putting guys away, but we're seeing them get better. I think since May 10th, we are 10th in Major League Baseball in starter ERA. So that's a solid improvement, but we're still looking to get better.
Well, one thing that the Guardians need to definitely improve is the offense. Paul Hoynes, Guardians beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, along a little bit later. We'll talk some Guardians. Up first, Quincy Carrier. We're talking Browns. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
At the Ohio Lottery, we make Keno fun your way. So go on, pick your wager. Will it be $1, $2, $10, or more? Your call. Then it's as easy as picking up to 10 numbers. Use any inspiration you like. You can even tag on the booster for a chance to boost your winnings up to 10 times. Every few minutes across Ohio, 20 out of 80 possible numbers are drawn. And if enough of yours match, you win. Keno is always fun your way.
We begin by talking Browns. Mandatory minicamp is in the books. They'll get ready for training camp after practice today. Kevin Stefanski talking about the plan for how the reps will be divided for the quarterbacks in training camp.
Yeah, I think that's something we talked a lot about prior to putting together the plan. And obviously there's that old saying, you treat everybody fairly but not the same. It's related to that. You know that there's guys that need to get X number of reps. There's guys that don't. I mean, Joe is 40 years old, has seen a lot of football, has played a lot of football. He does not need as many reps as the young guys do. So tried to be smart where we can still give Joe an opportunity to get better, an opportunity to be evaluated, while also maybe shifting a few of those reps to the younger guys and then mixing it up throughout. We had multiple guys in there at multiple spots, and that's kind of the way we've looked at doing business here the last 3 weeks with 9 practices where we just want to see a lot of these guys in a bunch of different situations.
With that, let's welcome in Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. So Quincy, what are your thoughts about the whole quarterback competition and are you confident they find somebody that can give them decent quarterback play?
It depends on what your bar is for decent, right? If your bar is better than last year, I'm pretty confident all 4 of these guys could put together a better season than what we had last year at the quarterback position. If we're talking about 15th, 16th best quarterback play in the NFL, probably not, right? I think that's a bit far-fetched at this point. We're talking about 2 rookies, a 40-year-old, and then Kenny Pickett. And as far as the competition goes, the way I see it is that the competition really hasn't started, right? Like that's for training camp, joint practices. Yes, there's some things that they're evaluating right now, but the ease in which something you do good in OTAs can be overtaken by more substantial work in training camp, especially in joint practices. You just can't count this competition really started yet.
Yeah, the way I have equated mandatory minicamp, it's like batting practice for baseball players. They should be doing well or we've got a problem.
Yeah, it's pass fail, right? That's how I look at OTAs. Either you pass or you fail it. You don't get an A plus in OTAs, right?
Yep.
This is not how the grades work. So yeah, I would agree with you there, Dave. Like it's a pass fail, and the good thing is it looks like all the quarterbacks and most of the players on this team, if not all of them, seem to have passed that test, which is just what you want. It's the bare minimum.
All right. So at what point in training camp do you think you can start to get an idea of, hey, can this guy play? Can that guy play? Particularly at quarterback, is it joint practices? Because even normal training camp, everything's kind of scripted.
Yeah, I mean the reality is we aren't gonna know if any of these quarterbacks are good until like maybe 6-7 weeks into seeing them, right? Like especially these rookies, and like there's just not enough time and enough reps in training camp to really have a good idea of what you have in one of those quarterbacks. So it's going to take a while, right? It's not just going to be a July thing or an August thing. This is going to be what we spend the entire season trying to figure out is what exactly do we have in this quarterback room, and how does that change how we plan going forward? And it's like I would prepare people. People are talking about this like it's going to be a sprint. This is going to be a marathon, and it's not going to end in September. It's going to go throughout the course of the season, well past the bye week, and even we're going to have these same discussions, Dave, probably next offseason, right? Like we haven't even gotten to the interesting parts of this. It's going to take a lot of time here, you know.
Kenny Pickett, going into his fourth year in the NFL, was asked if what he was told about Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski developing quarterbacks, has he kind of seen that so far?
To a T. Everything I expected coming into it, he's probably exceeded that. Just the knowledge of his system that he's been in for a long time and how he understands quarterback play and what it's like to be back there and kind of, the clock that we're on and what we have to do, to be successful. So it's been awesome, and he sits in every quarterback meeting, and he's part of all those conversations that we mentioned earlier. So it's been awesome.
And again, Quincy, I think people tend to forget because of how bad the quarterback play was last year. Kevin Stefanski has won with some very average quarterbacks.
Kevin has mastered the system that he knows really well, and he's been able to get a lot of good quarterback play out of guys, a lot of peak quarterback play out of guys, right? Jacoby Brissett, you could say his best season was in Cleveland. You can argue the same thing with Case Keenum. You can argue something similar with efficiency when it comes to Kirk Cousins. Kevin has done a really good job with the particular style of quarterback, getting the most out of them, somebody who really fits that West Coast offense. And I think that what they're trying to do is really nail in on that style of quarterback this offseason and just really seeing who's the guys that Kevin feels comfortable he can mold the most out of in this framework of this offense. And they're really going to lean on Kevin's knowledge of this offense to really get them where they want to be at.
What have you thought about Shedeur Sanders? All of the national people, there's a lot of, is he hype? I mean, let's start with that. What have you thought about Sanders and all the hype? And then there's a follow-up I have to that.
Well, I try to separate what the people outside are doing about Shedeur Sanders from like what I actually think about him, right? Because I don't want my negative feelings about how people are just like going insane with OTA practices right now to seep into how I feel about Shedeur. If I'm just judging Shedeur based on what I'm seeing, I'm encouraged, right? Like I think anybody would be encouraged to see the amount of clips that you're seeing from your rookie quarterback, the fact that he's succeeding against the second and third team. I don't need him. He just played at Colorado 3 months ago, right? Like it was not that long ago he was playing BYU. I do not need Shedeur Sanders right now to be strapping up against Myles Garrett. And it's another thing to think about, Dave. Even if the Browns had drafted him number 2 overall, they would be doing this exact same thing with Shedeur Sanders, where they would be slow playing him onto the field. They wouldn't just crown him as the week 1 starter, and we'd be having the same conversations of why are they letting Kenny Pickett take snaps over Shedeur Sanders when Shedeur's clear? We would be doing the same exact thing because there's just a lot of excitement about Shedeur. But yeah, I think he has done what you wanted to see a rookie do in camp. I think whenever he's asked questions from the media, he gives the right answers, and I like the mindset that it appears he's in from listening to those answers. So I'm encouraged by Shedeur Sanders, certainly from what I've seen at OTAs. It's just only so far you can really take it because it's OTAs.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. The other thing is, when you think about it, and people have made this comparison, and I think this is accurate, the type of quarterback he appears to be seems to fit a quarterback that would excel with Kevin Stefanski.
I think the part of that is true. One of the big problems with Shedeur is his ability to avoid sacks, right? And getting behind the sticks in the Kevin Stefanski offense is a big problem. But what I do like about Shedeur, what he brings to the table, is Shedeur is willing to attack that intermediate stuff. And I wonder, this is going to be something to look out for in camp, in preseason, if what's going to separate these guys eventually is their willingness to attack downfield. Because if we've seen anything in the Kevin Stefanski offense, it is that being overly conservative in this offense is not a successful strategy, right? You remember some of the worst quarterback play you've ever seen. We go back to 3 names: Dorian Thompson-Robinson 2023, Deshaun Watson 2024, Dorian Thompson-Robinson 2024. And what do all those guys have in common? A disastrously low yards per target number, air yards per target. They were very, very conservative with the football, afraid to attack the middle and the intermediate parts. When you don't do that in the Kevin Stefanski system, you're going to be cooked, right? It's not going to work out for you. But if you're willing to attack downfield, which we know Joe Flacco is going to be willing to do, which we know not Deshaun Watson, God, Shedeur Sanders is willing to do, then I think that's going to show itself during training camp and preseason, where you're like, hey, the offense does feel different with these guys because they're less concerned or less afraid of turning it over and more willing to just let it fly in an intermediate area. And I think that's going to make the difference. And I think that's where I would give Shedeur a leg up. He still has to manage the pocket a little bit better from what we've seen in college. If he can get a better handle on that, then I think there's really something there that Kevin can have a lot of success with.
Yeah, and hopefully it's because the line at Colorado couldn't give him a pocket, so that could be a problem. New offensive line coach Mike Bloomgren asked about what he has seen from DeJuan Jones so far.
Yeah, I think DeJuan's done some good things. You talk about like what you've seen this offseason just as the OSP started. You talk about the steps that he's taken. He's been at everything. He's attacked his rehab, and he's lost some weight. So I think those are good starting points. I think there's so much good in the package that is DeJuan Jones, things that certainly you can't coach, from a length, a size standpoint, athleticism. There's a lot of good in there, but he's certainly not a finished product, as are none of us in that offensive line room, including myself. Like, there's still a lot of work to be done. I really think it's the proverbial, like, we're not where we need or want to be, but thank God we're not where we used to be. We're making progress, but we got a long way to go.
Quincy, how important is it they figure out if DeJuan Jones is a starting tackle in the NFL? And how much does that aid quarterback running? If he's a starting tackle, that's a big – it doesn't even have to be left tackle, but it's a big check mark.
It's transformative. It's absolutely transformative. It makes your life so much easier, right? Like, if DeJuan Jones is good, you already have Zach Zinter on the roster who you hope is going to be able to take over one of the guard positions, right? And then, Luke Whippler could play at center. Ethan Posick's not super old. The same thing's true with Wyatt Teller. And then all we're really talking about is a right tackle to replace the former All-Pro that you have under a cheap contract in Jack Conklin. Like, him being able to play left tackle just makes that such a easier thing to rebuild, because now we're talking about maybe shifting around 2 pieces instead of 3-4 pieces, and those pieces being at the most critical spots of the line. So, yeah, if DeJuan can hold down left tackle and be a serious option at left tackle, that changes everything for the Browns' offensive line room, and that makes that position – I mean, you basically got gifted a lob, right? Like, that would just be a gift right there.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we're going to flip sides of the ball. We'll talk some defense. Sports4CLE, be right back.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Try C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. Defensive line coach Dawgs By Nature, what he has seen from rookie Mason Graham so far.
The more and more I just started watching, the more and more I just felt like, hey man, like this kid is going to be perfect for what we do. And so here we are right now, and I'm excited for that. You didn't meet him for when? Well, I met him at the 30 visit, but those are really short. And really you start zooming with guys and talking with guys and things like that. But no matter what, you can do that. And I've done that with a lot of players over the years. No matter what, it doesn't really count for me until they step in that building. When they step in that building, you get to see their habits every day, right? Who this person is. Is he a guy that comes in early? Yes. Is he a guy that hits the field early? Yes. Is he a guy that wants to work after practice? Yes. So then that's when you start realizing, like, man, this guy, not only is he a really, really good player, but he's probably one of the hardest working guys that we got. So that's a good little recipe for success in the NFL.
So, Quincy, what do you think of the pairing with Myles Garrett and Mason Graham? How good can that be?
Yeah, I mean, if Mason Graham is the same wrecking force eventually in the NFL that he was in college, it's going to be a really disruptive pair. We're talking about somebody who has really quick hands, is the opposite of getting stuck on these guards, right? Just able to get loose so often, and then able to just get pressure consistently at Michigan. On top of being a solid run defender, and you're adding that next to Myles, where guards are already going to be paranoid, right? Do I slide over to help my guy so we can get the outside? All of that, right? It's just going to make life very difficult for whatever side of the offensive line that has Myles, and it's going to make the life difficult for the interior of any offensive line that the Browns play.
So when you look at it, they've added Graham, they've added Schlesinger. Some of the other guys, some of the other young guys are coming back. How good do you think the defense can be?
This defense probably has some of the highest potential in the NFL, right? We'll see if they realize that potential for sure. But if those young guys are ready to go on the defensive line, right? Isaiah McGuire, Mason Graham, Mike Hall, if those guys are what we think they can be, and they are ready to take that step this year, then that defense will be incredible, right? Because a Jim Schwartz DD defense is as good as that defensive line, and if that defensive line's ready, they're going to be an incredible defense. But if they aren't ready, then I think some of the bigger flaws will be kind of exposed in this defense, right? Like the lack of corner depth. You have some youth at safety. Some of those things can become apparent when you're not getting pressure consistently. So it really does matter how these young guys step up, because, boy, I can get really excited if you start to look at this defensive line and you're like, we got Myles Garrett, who's under contract forever, Mason Graham, who we have under control for the next 5 years, Mike Hall next 3 years, and then 2 more years with Isaiah McGuire under control. And that's the core of your defensive line, that's young and only going to get better from that point.
The other thing is Malik Collins is probably, and don't forget Alex Wright. Alex Wright was having himself a heck of a beginning to the season before he got knocked out for the year last year.
Yeah, they have depth there. It's going to be like they're going to have to cut a good player, right? We're talking about either Obo Okoronkwo or Alex Wright. Like, they might have to make a decision, or Jawan Briggs, who I think is pretty good. Yeah. Right? Like, whoever the Browns cut from that defensive line room is not going to be on a practice squad. They're going to be picked up off waivers.
So Dawgs By Nature, defensive line coach, asked what he expects from Myles Garrett after the big contract.
After going through the season that we had last year, and Myles had a really good season, but he left a lot of meat on the bone, and he himself said that, hey, I can do better. So I know Myles is a prideful man, and he works extremely hard, and I know he's going to go out here and put his best foot forward and go out and dominate like he usually does. So, yeah, do I expect our best players to play their best for us? Absolutely. And if he happens to have the best year of his life, the best season of his life, then next year I'm going to want even more, so it's about him coming out every day, working to get better, working with the guys every day and helping them get better, and I think we'll be fine.
You kind of see why the defensive line responds to Jacques Césaire.
Yeah, he has all the things you love about a good defensive line coach there. But Myles Garrett, I don't know if you guys saw this clip, but I saw cleveland.com put it out there. And it was Myles Garrett running through these drills, and I thought you guys had sped the clip up until I saw one of the coaches moving in normal speed. And it's something to remember. Myles Garrett is not what the weight that they list him at, right? I know they list him at like 270 or something, the same weight he was at the combine. Just go look at a picture of Myles Garrett coming out the combine and Myles Garrett today. That's not the same size human being. That man might be 300 plus pounds moving like that. And I just think that we should just never take that for granted. That is a abnormal human being right there.
Without question. What do you think about Carson Schlesinger? That was a pick when they made it. I kind of scratched my head just because they went defense first 2 picks, and I thought they needed a lot on offense. I still think they need a lot on offense. But what are your thoughts about Schlesinger?
Carson Schlesinger, I like him as a player, right? I know that he was kind of a surprise there. Nobody was expecting the Browns to go linebacker when they went linebacker there. But this is somebody with really good eyes, really fluid hips. He could be that playmaking every down linebacker. And, I mean, let's say this guy lives up to his potential and he becomes, kind of a Luke Kuechly-like linebacker or a Fred Warner-like linebacker, and you have that on top of having Myles Garrett on one level, on top of having Denzel Ward. Maybe cross your fingers, we can get some clarity on JOK and he comes back one day. But then you're looking at a defense that has 3 levels of 3-star players, impact to guys at every level. Guys who are going to help you in the run game, guys who are going to help you in the interior. You got Mason Graham there as well. Like, I can see the blueprint for this being one of those defenses we talk about in like 10 years that they realize their potential, and we go, man, that was a crazy defense that the Browns had. It's like a guy in every room, which is what they're trying to do. They're trying to they got Grant Delpit at safety, right? That's their main guy there. They got Denzel Ward at corner. They're trying to get Carson Schlesinger to be that guy at linebacker in the interior. They got Mason Graham. They got Myles Garrett at edge, and you're literally talking about every position group having somebody that you hope can at the very least be a Pro Bowl caliber player, if not an All-Pro.
When you look at Schlesinger and Graham being added as the first 2 picks in the draft, is that telling you they thought they needed to be more physical in the middle of the field?
Yeah, I think that tells you what the Browns are doubling down on their identity being, right? They've had these conversations. They feel like one of the things that they didn't do well last year was have an identity on offense or defense. And I think they're saying to themselves, hey, we already have a strength on the team. We got Myles Garrett. He's the best player on the team. We just extended him. He's the most expensive player that's playing on the team right now. Why not build around that strength and say this is going to be a defensive-oriented smash-mouth football team, and we're going to take the best players that are going to help us play that kind of smash-mouth football. Myles Garrett, he answers that bell, obviously, but Mason Graham and Carson Schlesinger, you're talking about 2 guys in that box that can really change your run defense. If the Browns could be a top-tier run defense on top of what they have at pass rushing, this is going to make the whole team better.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we're going to talk a little bit about wide receivers and running backs. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns coverage. Deontay Johnson, wide receiver, veteran who signed with the Browns. after a turbulent 2024 where he played for 3 teams and was traded and released. Talked about what he brings to the Browns room as well as last year.
It's one bad year. It's one year. I had 5 great seasons in Pittsburgh. It's 1 year. That don't define me as a player or none of that. My character, none of that. So, like I say, everybody gonna say what they want to say about me, but I know who I am as a person deep down, and that's all that matters to me. So.
Do you feel like you have anything to prove to yourself or the league coming up?
Just be myself. Prove everybody wrong. That's my mindset. Keep going. Don't worry about the outside noise. Worry about what goes on in between these gates. That's it. Another weapon to the receiver room, offense. Make plays. Can be a help to the younger guys and stuff like that. Really just trying to be myself. Get back to where I left at. Just like I say, make the most of my opportunities whenever they come. Put it on film. That's really my main focus.
Quincy, how badly do they need Diontae Johnson to be the player that he can be?
It would help. I'm not in the camp of like, hey, we need to bet a lot on DeAndre Johnson stepping up. I think Cedric Tillman is one of the most under-talked about storylines in this camp. Cedric Tillman was somebody who, when the 5 weeks he played, he was on pace for 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns the way that he was playing, and then his season just kind of got cut short. But yeah, I think Diontae Johnson, if he can make the team, he will be a nice addition to this team. The Browns are probably going to throw the ball 500 times. You're thinking at the pecking order, Jerry Jeudy's going to get a ton of targets this year, probably more than he got last year. David Njoku's going to get a ton of targets this year. Then, you're factoring in Cedric Tillman, then Harold Fainin, and then we start thinking about okay, who else is going to be in that pecking order, and that could be Diontae Johnson. So there is a role there for sure for Diontae, but it's one that I think they're going to make sure that he earns. And right now, with him not showing up to the first 2 weeks of voluntary and letting Jamari Thrash get in there, it's going to be an uphill battle for him.
What do you think? Do they try to acquire a veteran tight end? Do they trade for one? Do they look at cut down day and see what names are out there?
I think there's a chance that they look at cut down day and look at some of the names out there, right? Treylon Burks is a name to look out for. The Browns had a lot of interest in him the year he came out. So maybe that's something that they consider there. But I wouldn't expect the Browns to do anything that really changes the face of that wide receiver room. I think they're looking at, hey, we're going to give Jerry Jeudy 150 targets, and they're pretty okay with that.
So Nick Chubb is gone to the Houston Texans. Met with the media yesterday and talked about his fit in Houston.
Yeah, he's a young coach, a lot of energy, a lot of intensity. He's young, fresh, he wants to win. And, I was questioning why they wanted me. And then I came here and I saw a bunch of guys who like to work and not talk. And I realized that I'm a perfect fit. So I realized why they wanted me here, and I'm excited about it.
Quincy, again, fans are really unhappy that the Browns didn't re-sign Nick Chubb. What are your thoughts about that, as well as the two rookies? I think are going to be really good. So running back, include Nick Chubb, as well as Judkins and Sampson.
Yeah, so Nick Chubb not being here, I think every Browns fan wants that story to end in Cleveland and not in Houston or somewhere else, and that's unfortunate, but that's kind of the way the league goes. I would have preferred the Browns bring back Nick Chubb, but you don't always get what you want. As far as what the Browns have, at least it would be much more upsetting to me, Dave, if the Browns had let Nick Chubb go. And then we're all right, we're going to give Jerome Ford and Pierre Strong a go, because that to me would have been wild. But it's Dylan Sampson, right? Their 4th round pick. It's Quinshon Judkins, who it was obvious they were going to have take the majority of carries this year. I still have a concern. We're talking about trying to get the 500 rushing attempts this year. I know 200 are at least going to come from Quinshon. How many are we really expecting Dylan Sampson to give you in year one? You know, he's still a rookie, right? Like, and he's not Quinshawn, where Quinshawn looks like a grown man today. He's not saying Dylan Sampson's small, but he just doesn't have the size that Q has. So is he going to be ready for 150, 180 carries in the NFL workload in the AFC North, one of the toughest divisions to run the football? I mean, just look at Pittsburgh's front seven this year. Like, it's going to be tough to run into that. You look at Baltimore's front seven. We talking about running into that 2 times a year. Cincinnati don't really got much there, but again, you know, you got to look at the other teams there. So yeah, that my only concern is, are we leaning too much? Are we allocating way too many carries for 2 rookies that we haven't seen in pads yet? You know, that's my concern there. I would feel a lot better if we had Nick Chubb, if I'm being honest. But, you know, at least that they look like they have passed the baton to somebody who can at least have a chance of living up to it, right? We're not talking about like, oh, we drafted, Donovan Edwards in the 7th round, and we're gonna see if he could take over for Nick Chubb, right? It doesn't seem like a rinky-dink plan like that.
No, and both Sampson and Junkins were highly rated, and probably the combination of both of them is what they moved on from Chubb. Let's go with this. What are realistic expectations for Browns fans to have for the team this year?
I think this is a year where you judge success by the progress of the young players on the roster. Now, obviously, with that progress, you're going to want to see some wins and big moments with these guys, right? Some moments, some wins that make you feel like these guys are making progress. What that number of wins can vary greatly depending on how the season starts, right? If the season starts slow, but then they finish strong and it looks like it's the young guys leading the charge, it could be the same record they could have gotten before, but if you do it that way, people feel much better about it. I think that's the kind of year it's going to be. Will the Browns make the playoffs? I doubt it. Will the Browns be over 500? I'm not betting on it. But will they be a team that you are excited about their future? I think that's what you want to be at, right? You want to look at this team and say, hey, we got 2 draft picks in the 1st round next year. We had this, that. If this would have went our way, we would have got 10 games this year, and now we're going to have even more talent on top of this, and maybe we don't feel desperate about quarterback coming out this season. I think if you're at that point, that's an absolute win.
All right, so what do they have to have happen for them to kind of raise the ceiling, other than somebody blow them away as a quarterback? You know, assuming you're not going to get top 15 quarterback play, is there a way they get to 8-9 wins?
Yeah, this defense is elite. Like, if those young guys on the defensive line are all ready, and that defense is elite, that defensive line is elite. And Quinshawn Junkins is like, he's going to have a Kareem Hunt level rookie year, then yeah, you'll be a playoff team, right? You're not that far off, right? You know what I mean? I'm not trying to paint the picture like the Browns are years away from being a playoff team. I'm just saying we need something on offense that's going to generate offensive consistency to a level to where you can rely on it to win the bulk of your games. Right now, I don't see it. And defensively, if that's how you're going to win, you need to be one of the best defenses in the NFL. But it's possible. It's I can see it happening.
Yeah, you probably need 4 or 5 guys that you drafted to perform at a really high level. Is probably what.
Of the 3 guys that you drafted, if 2 of those guys are like in the conversation for their side of the ball rookie of the year, then you'll probably be in the position we're talking about, right?
Quincy Carrier, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Quincy.
No problem, Dave. You have a great rest of your day.
Quincy Carrier, make sure you check him out. Untitled, unfiltered Browns coverage, always great stuff. We'll continue talking Browns. Damon Wolfe from Dawgs By Nature up next. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's welcome in Damon Wolf from Dawgs By Nature. So, Damon, minicamp over. What were your takeaways from minicamp?
Yeah, so Dave, I think the first thing that I really noticed is that the Browns were very efficient with the plan of all this and trying to get as many reps incorporated for the two rookie quarterbacks. And it seems that they are definitely ratcheting up the intensity this year with things, the competition level, all that stuff. Even though it's just minicamp, I am encouraged by what I've seen so far from the coaching staff. I think they've done a nice job of being organized and efficient with their time. And then as far as the players go, of course, obviously, everybody's talking about the quarterback competition and the two rookie quarterbacks. I think we've got to feel encouraged about where they are in their development so far. I really like some of the things that I have seen from Shedeur Sanders and his ability to just put the ball exactly where he wants it. I know he's out there with the, third string and fourth string a lot of times, but he is hitting guys in stride and has looked pretty good doing it.
Yeah, and again, we'll know more of that once it gets full speed, pads, there's hitting and all those kind of things. So offensive line coach Mike Bloomgren talked about getting back to quote-unquote Kevin Stefanski's style of offense.
Honestly, from day one of OSP, when we got to talk about it, when Tommy Rees went in there and installed the offensive identity, and we talked about who we're going to be and what things have to happen for us to be that team, I think you've seen a great level of excitement, and you've also seen guys making a commitment to make those techniques work.
With the idea of the identity, what is your philosophy going into this of what you want this line to be, what you want them to represent when they're out there?
Yeah, this line is going to be smart, tough, and physical, and they're going to see the game through one set of eyes, and that's going to be Ethan Posick, who's going to identify things for us.
And, they want to be physical, and he also mentioned, pass blocking. So it's interesting, very different offensive line coach than we heard from last year.
Yeah, Bloomgren is definitely, in my opinion, a breath of fresh air in that room. And just hearing him talk, I think a lot of Browns fans are probably going to fall in love with him this year as we learn more about him and his coaching style. He's very diverse in what he can do. Obviously, he worked with Callahan in the past, so he's very familiar with some of the wide zone schemes and stuff that Kevin likes to run. And I think that he's also a guy that I really think will bring a lot to some of the younger players on the team as far as development. I think that since Callahan has left, we've certainly, last year we were lacking that. So guys like, Luke Whippler and Zach Zinner and even DeJuan Jones are really going to benefit from playing under him this year.
What are the keys, do you think, and you wrote an article about this, for the offensive line to kind of rebound?
Well, I think the first and foremost thing, I think being healthy is going to be absolutely critical for them. But just getting back to playing that physical style, I think that last year the operation was just not what it needed to be on offense. I don't know if they were giving those guys too much to think about, but lining up and, just getting set for a play seemed to be a problem at times. I think that, this year, hopefully they will not have so many of those mental lapses that they've had in the past or they had last year, and get back to just being a more dominant physical football team up front.
So Browns quarterback Kenny Pickett is more familiar than anybody in the organization with Deontay Johnson. They played together with the Steelers. Pickett was asked about what the Browns are getting in Deontay Johnson.
One-on-one, he gets separation. I think he does a really good job of getting separation at the line, at the top of his routes. In and out of cuts, I think is probably his biggest strength. He gets in and out really well. So a lot of those third down, possession down, route running, which you need to be precise at, I think he can bring that. Just help him any way I can. I was talking to him a lot today in the field, in the 2-minute period, going through the play calls with him, where he would be if he was at Z or X or F, and kind of, talking him through each play. So he's working really hard at it. It's great to have him here, and I know that he's going to continue to do
that. How important is Deontay Johnson? How much do the Browns need him to be the guy that he can be?
Well, I think that anything that they get from Johnson will be a bonus, and I do think that he could have a really important role. I am encouraged by what I've seen over the past few days out of him on the field. He looked a little bit more fluid in his movements and stuff than he did last year on tape. So it wasn't ideal that he wasn't here the past couple of weeks and chose to stay home. But I am encouraged by what I see. I think that he can play a role for us as long as his head is where it needs to be, and he makes football the main thing. I think he could play a very valuable role for us.
What are you paying? So now the 5-6 weeks until training camp gets underway. They'll have the ramp up period, and then they'll get in pads. What are you going to be paying attention to early in training camp?
Early in training camp, I'm going to be paying attention to some of the things we talked about at the beginning. I want to see them really driving home competition. I want to see some urgency, some physicalness, things that were, missing last year in camp. I think one of the things that really hurt the team last year is the coaching staff had a lot on their plate to deal with, not only trying to, put in a new version of the offense with Ken Dorsey, but they were also managing around Deshaun Watson's shoulder injury quite a bit, along with the health at the tackle position. So I don't think they quite got the work in that they wanted to do. I mean, there were days early in camp where they were having a chart, how much distance Deshaun Watson was throwing the football, how many reps he was getting, all that kind of stuff. And I think that when you're in that kind of environment and you're trying to micromanage everything like that, it just doesn't produce a very good, intense environment that you need to have in camp.
The other thing was they had a lot of injuries, even early in the season, and they got off to a horrendous start. I had said last year, whatever you did in training camp last year, don't do it again. Do exactly the opposite. I mean, you got to avoid the injuries, and you got to get off to a quick start.
Absolutely. Well, at least they're not going back to the Greenbrier this year, so that's definitely a change.
All right, let's turn our attention. What are your expectations for this team this year?
So for the team overall, I mean, there's a lot of variables. I think, a lot of unknowns that could lead to a wide variation of outcomes. I think that ideally, if they could get in the range of winning 8 to 9 games, that would probably be a good marker for them as far as how tough the schedule is, especially early on. I don't expect, them to be able to beat out the Ravens for the division or anything like that. But if they can be in the hunt, they can be in the mix, that would be a successful season. I think Andrew Berry the other day in an interview kind of admitted that, they realize that this year is a little bit of a pivot for them. And I think they definitely want to stay competitive and build a winning culture here and get back to some of the things that they found success with in the past. And I think if they can do that at the end of the day, as well as bringing one of these rookie quarterbacks along, that would be a huge win for them.
All right, before I let you go, other than, getting, top 15 quarterback play, how do they do it? What are the keys for them to get to as good of a team as they can be?
Well, I think you got to really rely on your strengths. I mean, first up front on the defensive line, the defense has to really carry this team, put a lot of pressure on the quarterback and be able to stop the running game as well. And I think that they can do that. I think they're well positioned for that this season, coming off a down year last year. And then on the other side of the ball, I think it's, to play mistake-free football and run the ball. And that's got to be the huge emphasis. along the offensive line staying healthy. If they can do those things, I think that they've got a chance to be really competitive.
All right. As always, great stuff. Appreciate it, Damon Wolf. Thanks very much.
No problem, Dave. Anytime. Thank you.
All right, Damon Wolf. Make sure you check him out. Dawgs By Nature. Always good stuff. We're going to turn our attention to the Guardians. Paul Hoynes, Guardians beat reporter from Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We turn our attention to the Guardians. A day off today, traveling to the West Coast. They will face the Mariners in Seattle tomorrow. And as of now, they are in third place in the AL Central, 8 games behind the Tigers, a game behind the Twins. Let's welcome in Paul Hoynes, Guardians beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Hoynes, what do they need to do to get on a roll? 8 games out, middle of June is not good.
Yeah, David, it just looks like, to me, they are a classic team that doesn't score, a classic team that really doesn't score enough runs. And, occasionally you're going to see a game like Wednesday when they break out and score 10 or 11 runs. But usually it's going to be 2 to 3 to 4 runs per game, and it's going to be close. And it's really hard to win those games when you're not clicking on all cylinders. And right now that seems to be the funk they're in. So what they need to do is, it seems pretty basic. They've got to score more. They've got to pitch better. They've got to play better defense.
So a couple of things. Bottom 10, bottom 7 in runs scored. How do they get? I know you wrote an article about kind of Kyle Manzardo being caught in between. Jose Ramirez has been fantastic. What do they do if he hits a little bit of a lull?
Yeah, and he is. I mean, he can't stay this high. 31 out of 32. I mean, this is the best I think I've ever seen him, Dave. And the guy's 31 years old. He's getting older, but he's doing nothing but getting better. I just don't know what they do without this guy. And, Santana has been solid, but they have got to get people going. Hopefully Lane Thomas can stay in the lineup, stay healthy, and contribute as he did Wednesday. I remember throughout spring training, you asked the front office, you asked the coaching staff, okay, you guys made it to Game 5 of the ALCS last year, but you really didn't make any big improvements on this offense. How is it going to get better? And they all pointed to Lane Thomas, having a full season of Lane Thomas. But, unfortunately, Thomas has been on the IL twice. And Wednesday was the 20th game he's played. So, that's a concern. And if he could stay healthy and stay productive, that's a plus. But it might be one of those years where he has trouble staying on the field.
Yeah, again, they just need guys in the lineup that are not hitting below. Most nights they're trotting out 3 guys. 3 of their 9 in the batting order are hitting below 200. The other thing you mentioned, the defense. I looked this up. Only the Rockies and the Red Sox have a worse fielding percentage than the Guardians so far this year. This team, offensively, you can't do that. Your offense isn't good enough to overcome it.
Yeah, they've got, this team has to win on the margins. They have to do everything right to just have a chance to win, not just win. And when you're kicking the ball around, when you're throwing the ball to the wrong base, that's gonna come back and bite you. We saw it on Wednesday afternoon. The first play of the game, Gabriel Arias, the shortstop, doesn't have his sunglasses on, and almost drops a sun ball. They have to run the glasses out to him, and then he throws the ball into the photographer's pit for a 2-base error. And you just can't play that way. You cannot play that way and be a winning ball club. And, that's the one thing that they've been noted for, the last 3, 4, 5 years. They've always played good defense.
All right, so offensively, we've admitted they need some help. A lot of fans are calling for help from AAA. Chase DeLauder is a name that seems to be somebody that fans really want. Let's take a look at the numbers from Chase DeLauder. And I want to point out, he only has 67 bats at the AAA level. That's over the last 2 years. That's not just this year. It's the last 2 years. He's been hurt. And he's hitting .269, 3 homers. He's got the 12 runs batted in. The walks and strikeouts are pretty good, given that he doesn't have a lot of AAA experience. Another name that has fans' attention is C.J. Kayfus. Has hit at every level that he's been at. He's got 134 at-bats at the AAA level, hitting .306. The concerning thing that makes you wonder, can he have this success at the big leagues? 41 hits, 40 strikeouts. At AAA, that doesn't usually translate into the big leagues. He does have the 5 home runs and the 17 runs batted in. But again, almost as many strikeouts as hits at AAA for Kayfus. Paul, historically, this isn't an organization that runs guys up to the big leagues quickly. They want to see 300 at-bats usually at AAA, that kind of number.
Yeah, Dave, it's really interesting. They almost, when Kayfus was red hot, they didn't bring him up. And now if you brought him up now, he might be cooling off. And I've seen him do that time and time again, where they wait for a prospect to cool off, then they bring him up, and he doesn't hit the ground running. But yeah, the strikeouts are a concern. I think you've got to look at the big picture with Kayfus. This is a first baseman. They're asking him to play left and right field. I'm sure that has, divided his attention, besides, getting base hits and trying to, have a good batting average and being a solid, productive player. So, that's all part of development. And like you said, they've been very, very patient in the past with their young guys. But, lately, I think there's been a change of philosophy in that regard. With the reduction of the minor league teams, every organization can only have 4 full season clubs, and that means a reduction of the players. These guys are moving faster through the minor league system, so that necessarily maybe wouldn't prevent Kayfus from getting called up. Maybe they would think, if you get up to the big leagues, we can help you a little more. The coaching improves, whatever. But I don't think the strikeouts to walk ratio would necessarily be the big factor in him not coming to the big leagues.
So when you look at it, Manzardo, he's kind of caught in between. And I know you wrote an article about that. Take us through what you've seen with Kyle Manzardo. There have been spots where it's like, man, this guy, and then there have been other things where it's like, woo.
Yeah, in March and April, he only hit .220. But he had 8 home runs, 19 RBIs. He was leading the team in both those categories. And you're sitting there thinking, okay, this is a young hitter that's kind of emerging. Then he comes, he to May, he hits 200, he hits 2 home runs, 9 RBIs. The OPS takes a drastic drop. So I think we're seeing a young guy caught, in that developmental stage, and he is in between. That's what manager Stephen Vogt said. And when you're in between, you're late on the fastball and early on the breaking ball, or vice versa. You're just caught in between. And right now that's him. We saw some 2 good at bats from him yesterday in a pinch hitting role. And Dave, I think he's caught, in this their philosophy of platooning. At almost every position but 2 or 3 positions on the field. He at the start of the season, he was hitting left-handers. Now suddenly he's not playing against lefties. So I think you really have to be strong mentally as a young player, just to take care of what you can take care of, and let the manager make his decisions. But when you get your chance, you've got to be productive. And, he's had a stretch where he has not been productive.
Do you think there's a trade to be made that they can go out and get somebody, and then, if Lane Thomas plugs a hole in the lineup, is there another guy that can plug another hole offensively?
I think there's always trades to be made. The Lane Thomas trade last year helped them, at going down the stretch and in the postseason, but who are you going to trade? I mean, do you trade Carlos Santana? I mean, that's the guy that jumps out at you. He's on a one-year deal. He's a free agent. He's had a productive season. But who do you bring back? Who helps you more than Santana could help you? I mean, that's the thing with me. And are you serious about contending? I mean, in 2023, we saw them trade, their veteran guys at the deadline when they were 1.5 games out. So what do you do when you're 8 games out at the deadline? That's the thing. That's the next story in this book, to see just how as the deadline approaches at the end of July, where are they going to be in the standings, and what approach the front office takes?
Yeah, basically have a month to show that they are legitimate, true contenders to go deeper into the playoffs. Hoynes, as always, great stuff. Appreciate you joining us. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
Paul Hoynes, make sure you check him out. Great Guardians coverage for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.